Annabeth, would you like to maybe speak to that some more about the future of the Future Church Summit process?
The future of the Future Church.
Yes.
Definitely multifaceted and multi-layered and whole in its complex diversity. The official FCS outcomes report is on the Mennonite Church USA website, and Ken, I've often thought of, or not, excuse me, not Ken, Luke, I've thought of your metaphor of the diversity in an ecosystem to kind of think about how, in the end, we wanted all of these themes to speak for themselves, and we erred on the side of including all of them as a way to speak to the full capacity of outcomes for the summit, and how kind of in the diversity of those parts we come up with a fuller vision of how our denomination might work together. We also hope that these themes will continue to live not only on the denominational level, but the themes and content that people will engage with individually and as congregations and conferences and in our agencies and colleges and seminaries. So really see this as a generative process kind of throughout the many layers of our denomination. And I would also encourage people to revisit the outcomes that we as a design team named at the beginning of this process, some which are also on the MCUSA website. And I think as this conversation has reiterated that a significant outcome of the Future Church summit process was designing and modeling a different way of doing process. This was a delegate experience, a delegate plus experience that was facilitated by an outside professional facilitator, and that was designed obviously by a much more diverse team than we've typically had in the past. And that led to a really different way of engaging one another, and a difference in the not only the experience, but the content, I think, of what came out of our time together. So yeah, this whole thing was a way of doing process differently and more representatively, and one that we hope will be a step at building deeper, more authentic trust and accountability among us as people in this beloved faith community.
Yeah. And also, like, just Annabeth, just thinking about like the document being a living document, like, so because we love more documents. I feel like Mennonite people just love to like write documents. But anyways, but there's even another document that we as a team wrote to give clarity about like framing like our process and how you should read the report, right? Like, so our encouragement to you for how you should read this report as a theme and design team. And so even before you read the report, maybe taking some time to read our framing document that's there as well on the website from the theme team and the design team about our hopes and how we encourage you to read this document. So there was also some conversation besides the conversation around the resolution. There was also conversation around like people's angst or tension around whether we rank things or not and why we didn't rank things or not. And Isaac, I was wondering if maybe you and others can also speak to like why we didn't rank things. I mean, like, what's up with that?
Yeah, I think maybe to key on what Annabeth said about this being a generative process, I think one thing that we realized is that the group generated all of these dreams, directions for our future, and to prioritize them felt like we were deciding what's most essential, as if those other things don't already describe who we are. And yeah, so it was like actually a late night meeting we had in the midst of that tornado warning, wasn't it? I think that's what we were like huddled in like a bathroom hallway.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, I don't know. Tornadoes were in there somewhere. Yeah.
But yeah, getting together, realizing that this process that we all engage in at the Future Church Summit was one of those generating an imagination for a life together, and that all of these themes that were named got at that in different ways. And it just felt like it would be stripping away some of the things that was most essential to who we are if we were to say, oh yeah, these are the most important, not these other ones. So that's what I remember being the reason why we decided at the end to just let the report stand as it was without prioritizing this over that.
Right. And we did do some kind of like making sure that the report was accurate. Like we did some testing. So I was happy that we were able to do that, like getting an affirmation, which was like a crazy, overwhelming, strong affirmation that the report actually reflected the conversation and the work that everybody had done through those 2.5 days. So there wasn't like we just said, well, we're scared to fact check it. We did fact check it, and it was accurate and reflective, at least to the majority of people that were there. So that's kind of, I don't know if anybody else want to speak to like why.
Can I just add one more?
Yeah.
Can I add just one more thing that
Yes.
I didn't, as you're reminding me now, Chantel. So I think the other thing that was part of this decision is, I think as Anabaptists, we have been so shaped by this understanding of what counts as identity as being like a few things, like what's most essential, and narrowing down. And I think part of what we were discerning in that room together is that we are all of these things. And to somehow say that we are not all of these things, we cut off parts of ourselves. And that may be a better way to think about who we are is, what are the clusters of themes through which we hear and experience the gospel that can generate an imagination for us to live out that gospel in the world. And we need all the help we can get. I mean, we need all the voices at the table so that we can live this life together, instead of trying to figure out like what's the commonest, least, what's that called? I'm so bad at with fractions and math. I forgot all that.
Common denominator.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that. We don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Thank you. I think that really sums it up well. And just thinking about wrapping up our conversation. So as Annabeth already said, like it's not done. This is a living, ongoing process. But we as a team, after we labored for many months, we have our own hopes for what we think would happen, what we would hope would happen next with this process, besides what Annabeth mentioned about like different groups taking it and sitting with it. Ken and others, if you want to speak to like what are some of our hopes as a team moving forward for how the Future Church Summit can keep speaking to the life of the church.
Sure. Yeah, I certainly one of my hopes, sometimes when you go through a process like this, like we just went through with Future Church Summit or some kind of a visioning process, these documents can kind of get placed on the shelf and forgotten about. And that's one of our hopes, is that is the last thing that happens with this, that it is a living, breathing document, not just a document, something that really provides vision and guidance to local conferences and congregations as well. So one of my hopes, and I think for us collectively as a theme team, is that local conferences and congregations will take time with some of the findings in this outcome report, wrestling with some of these questions themselves. I think these are, I want to say this with all humility because we help to shape these questions, but I think they're very good generative questions. Questions like, what draws us to this faith? What does it mean to follow Jesus as Anabaptists in the 21st century? How do we live with our differences? These are very timely and relevant questions, I think, not just for us as a denomination, but for local conferences as well as local congregations. So my hope would be, and my prayer would be, that conferences and congregations take time, whether that's at a staff level, pastors, conference leaders, boards, as well as a broader level, as we did at the Future Church Summit, within conferences and congregations among members, taking time to discern around these questions together, as well as looking at some of the findings from the Future Church Summit and seeking the Spirit's leading in what this means in our local context. how do we live this out? How can we follow Jesus as Anabaptists in the 21st century? So that would be some of my hopes.
The other hope is that I just want, it's like, please understand this is not prescriptive, it's descriptive, that it's, you know, it came about through discernment. It's very much in line with, you know, early Anabaptist communal hermeneutics, and you know, so I just really valuing, my hope is that people will, I don't know, just see that the Spirit was there, is there, and it's okay to wrestle with it. That's, you know, that's what it means. I also want to make one correction. I think the document, it's someone alluded that I was in charge of the facilitators, but really Lorraine Stutzman-Amstutz was the one asked to bring the facilitators together. So there, you know, although there are the people that are here on the this call, and there were other people on the discernment team, there are people who were not even on any of that who also stepped up and participated as best as they could, because again, they love the church and they care for the church. And so yeah, it's about being descriptive. It's about a discernment processes, and it's about articulating the dreams that were heard in the room. So
I just wanted to say thank you to all of you here, including Annabeth, and really, like you said, Michelle, the facilitating team, Lorraine and others, the people who gave reflections during the process, to Glenn for even having the vision to begin with, for Catherine for all of her labor with us over the many, many months, and for Todd for bringing in the support through technology and being part of our team, and all this call today. Yeah, thank you everybody for just like your time and your passion and your hearts. I feel like nobody came to the table half-heartedly or against the will. People were there definitely because they wanted to be there and have given a good chunk of their minds and their hearts and their energies to this process. So, and the fruit, and the proof is in the fruit. We're going to put this back. The proof is in the outcomes of what we were able to do together, how we were able to listen to each other and hear from each other in a way that was really dignifying, and I feel like really modeled what the church needs to live into more, how we listen to each other with compassion and with respect, and listening to hear each other, but also that we would do the work together, and not just think like, wow, we did that wonderful process for 2.5 days, great, but that would really be a catalyst for us to do the work together of being church. So I don't know if anybody else has any closing comments, hopes, prayers.
Okay, so a couple of things from the floor that was intriguing to me, and hopefully she can at least hear, is, you know, we're a messy group. We're just a messy group. You know, it was clear the directions were to take in people, you know, thoughts, just put them in the iPad, and some people just had a very difficult time. They wanted to have consensus, even though the directions were very clear, articulated clearly. So it was a lot of that. No, just, you know, record people's thoughts, and I think they finally got it. I was really, it was interesting, the different tables, and although I think people were, for the most part, I don't know how the tables are chosen, but there was one young table, a table of, I would call them millennials, you know, what do I know anymore? I'm so old now, I don't even know what a millennial is, but anyway, they were much younger, and it was really exciting watching them. I mean, they were just all in it, you know, and the technology wasn't an issue, and understanding the directions wasn't an issue, and they were also having fun. I mean, that was really That was really, really good to see. There was one instance where a woman who, I think she and her pastor pastors a church, and the church says it is a Mennonite church, because I know the church because it's in my region. It's a Mennonite church, but she was very clear. We don't even call ourselves Mennonite. It's on the board, but frankly, we're just about Jesus, and so there was that kind of stuff happening where, and then there were times where young people where people our age was trying to explain, so age-splaining to young people, like a young person says something, and they're really trying to tell them how to. Yeah, that was. But so in essence, I think it's just like, but you know what? That's why we've got the Holy Spirit, because we are a mess. And the Holy Spirit worked anyway. Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God. Hallelujah. Yeah.